Welcome to the Visionary Chronicles, a podcast dedicated to uncovering the strategies and insights that drive innovative, disruptive businesses. Join us as we explore the mindsets, cultures, and solutions powering the next generation of industry leaders and creative trailblazers. Whether you're seeking to inject new life into your organization or spark transformative growth, the Visionary Chronicles is your guide to executable, cutting-edge business strategy. Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. As always, appreciate you being with me today. We're going to talk further on the new book I just released, Visionary Leader, shamelessly shown over my left shoulder here, the success principles of the world's greatest visionaries, released on June 30th, a labor of love for almost 2 years. Proud to say that it is an Amazon bestseller on category, and appreciate those that have purchased the book, but more importantly, those that have read the book and already applied some of the principles that they learned from the visionaries outlined in the book, as well as some of the areas, the ideas, the framework that I put around those principles for you to apply in your day-to-day. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So today, we're going to talk a little bit further on Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is mindset. I'd mentioned last week, if you haven't listened to the last couple podcasts, one was an overview of the book, the second was the introduction, and then we got into Chapter 1 and now Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is one of the more important chapters in the book I talked about. It's the mind. Many people don't think about the mind itself and how it works and how it can get cluttered. I think I mentioned last week something around 17,000 or so decisions we have to make a day, and trying to take a sabbatical in order for you to define your vision. Many visionaries that I outline in the book, and I should say almost all of them, would take what I call sabbaticals when they're setting their vision, whether it be Socrates, whether it be Steve Jobs, whether it be Martin Luther King Jr., whatever inspiration it may be in the visionaries that I talk about in the book, they all had the ability to utilize and master their mind and have clarity around their vision. And the importance of the clarity is you can't have distractions when you're trying to define a vision that's going to set the path future for your brand, product, or service. And as a result of that, you really need to have this sabbatical. And I kind of clarified when people were asking me, well, what do you mean by sabbatical? Is this something I have to be away for a week, a month, a year, whatever it is? It's not that. It's really what I talked about was being somewhere with no distractions, was really kind of what it comes down to. And this is really important when we talk about the mind, is that all of these distractions in the office, at home, whatever it may be, is you really need to find a quiet place. And I'd mentioned Steve Jobs, where Steve would actually take walks, barefoot walks actually, out in the grass at Apple so he could really set his mind on what he wanted to do and how to execute his vision. Steve didn't just have one pipeline innovation. He set a vision, a pipeline innovation for 10 years that he left with Apple to serve. So that's really what you're looking at here with the mind. This chapter speaks really to the very core of what it means to lead with vision, not just manage, not just execute, but terms that not a lot of people use a lot of times is imagination, influence, inspiration on a level few leaders ever reach. Most people think leaders as assigning tasks, being able to share credit. Now that's important because that's a humility, which is something that all visionary leaders have, is humility. They're confident. They have self-awareness of what they can provide, and they don't need others to tell them that. They're very self-confident, very self-aware, and also at the same time, very humble because they know what their capability and powers are. So again, this chapter will speak in a little bit more in depth. If you haven't listened to the previous podcast, which was last week on Chapter 2, I talked about mindset again. And this one will talk even more about imagination, influence, and inspiration on a level that very few leaders have. They may have it what I do find is that they will have it maybe here and there, but not continuously, not authentically. So many believe that, really success lies in processes, tactics, and a lot of times, hey, you're just lucky. But those are simply what I call outputs from decision making and leadership principle. The true input, the beginning of every breakthrough is mindset. And again, I'll repeat this because it's really important you understand this on your mind when you're a leader, whether it be a manager, a vice president, president, whatever it may be. I always get asked this question. How do I set a vision for my company is number one. Number two, how do I continue to passionately drive that vision into the team? And number three is, how do I keep the team motivated? So many believe that success lies in processes, tactics, or even luck, let's say. But those are simply what I call outputs of decisions. Focus on the true input. The beginning of every breakthrough is your mindset, what you believe you can achieve. Corny as that sounds, it's really something that when I talk with those that are leading companies and those that have led companies, and I've researched, that's really what they believe. They have to believe it before they can see it. Others have to see it before they believe it. The visionary leader really sees things differently. They view their brand as more than a product or a company or a service. It's really part of if you were talking a bigger movement, something that lives, it breathes when they talk about it. And these leaders use their minds as a strategic compass. They really guide their teams through uncharted waters, new paths that nobody's ever ventured before. So I talk a lot about outdoor ventures, paths, destinations, journeys, and it's really what it is. And it's a cool analogy because people in their mind want to be taught through a journey. They want to be taught through what was your journey. My journey was one of a lot of ups and downs in different companies, different brands, different business development. I always affectionately called my career a little bit like a pirate. I was always walking a plank. I had the most dangerous jobs, they called it. I was always on the edge. I was on business development with all the brands that I'd been with K-Swiss, with Oakley, with TaylorMade, Adidas, whatever it was. Because I had run my own company, I had a mindset that whatever you believed, you can achieve. And I had a passion around the vision that we set for these brands. But it wasn't without a lot of ups and downs. I was willing to take the risk, and many times I paid the penalty for that. And the brands I was with, I loved. It just many times either they weren't ready for what we wanted to do, and or we just didn't have the mindset and the commitment to want to achieve it. So the visionary leader really sees things differently. They view their brand as more than a product or a company, as I'd mentioned. It's a bigger movement, something that lives and breathes inside of brands. And that's really what you want. When you talk about a Patagonia, you talk about an Oakley, you talk about a Nike, it's really a brand that lives and breathes, and it's a community. And it's a passion sometimes that people have such an affection for that they refuse to use any other brand in the category like Apple, for instance. These leaders use their minds as strategic compass. They guide their teams towards our uncharted paths I talked about, journeys that they put them on. They always, always, always challenge the status quo of what their competitors are doing or what their industry is doing. And more importantly, they disrupt. They create things entirely new. So we're going to explore what that looks like in action today. How a mindset becomes really the starting point for movements, how it powers bold ideas, how it shapes brands that really leave legacies that we remember today. So we're going to talk about the mindset, chapter 2 of my new book, The Visionary Leader, the Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. And visionary leadership, building this mental framework for continuous achievement. What does that look like? So we're going to talk a couple points here. The first is the mindset, as you think about it, the mindset as a roadmap. And what does that mean? So the first thing is visionaries leaders think beyond the present. They see what could be. And I talked about this last week, but we're going to extend upon that idea of seeing what others don't. And what I call in the book is future casting. The ability to set a vision that others don't see, and it's really part of this strategy around where is your industry going, where is your brand going, and how are you going to get there? They see what could be, not what is today. Their minds build realistic and aspirational futures. So there's this blend of incremental, what I call innovation and disruption. Incremental is this realistic path that you take for your brand to keep it moving ahead. Innovation is a leapfrog over your competitors. And disruption is innovation on steroids. It's really reinventing a product, reinventing a process, reinventing an industry. And that happens so infrequently. But when it does, it literally puts you a decade ahead of your competitors in many instances. And there's many examples of that. Apple has the iPod, iTunes, and then the iPhone. And when you look at it, the generations, really all iPhone is the next generation. That's incremental, which frustrates me, as you know, with Apple. Is that since Steve left, there really hasn't been much innovation other than just incremental improvements. And it's okay, but you have to understand that incremental improvements are finite. Disruptive innovations are infinite. Think of that. And look at your product line, look at where you're at, look at your ideas, look what you're putting up on the board from an ideation and design perspective, and really ask yourself a question. Are these ideas finite, incremental, and or infinite and disruptive? You have a choice. The second is what I call future casting with clarity. When I put clarity behind future casting is really setting a vision for the brand in the future, 5-10 years out. People often ask me, well, you can't forecast that far out. Well, these leaders can do future casting with clarity. And it's in their mind. And that's why it's so important to control your mind and what you think about. Because when you think about these leaders and their ability to bring the future to the present and clearly define how you're going to hit your destination without anybody else understanding that vision other than the visionary themselves. It is so important for you to set aside time as a leader. I don't care if it's a vision for a project, a vision for a new product, a vision for a new process, whatever it is. You need sabbatical time in order for you to be able to develop in your mind and develop your mind to have this type of strategy on an ongoing basis. So they anticipate market needs and global dynamics. The second point on this is they create long-term strategies rooted in, now listen to this, please. They create long-term strategies rooted in what? Most people would think, well, improvements on products that you currently have in line with your product line. Maybe it's a faster process. Well, visionary leaders think in this way in creating long-term strategies. They're rooted in, number one, values. Nobody thought they would hear that one. The mission of the brand. Is it right for the brand? Is it right for our community? Would our users adopt it? And the goals of the company. These are the three areas that all visionaries and leaders look at. They go create long-term strategies rooted in values, mission, and goals. Because guess what? What is an anchoring foundational principle for all companies and brands? It's values, mission, and goals. The next is creative ideation and strategic refinement. So when we talk about generating bold, disruptive ideas through focused ideation, that's what we're talking about. Continuously refining strategies that align with evolving landscapes of our world. So creative ideation and strategic refinement. You could also call it pivoting, switchback leadership, generating bold, disruptive ideas through focused ideation, continuously refining strategies to align with evolving landscapes. I would always do when I work with brands, I've been through hundreds of ideation sessions with brands, footwear, apparel, consumer products, whatever it may be. And one thing that always surprises the design team when we come in there with Liquid Mind is when they look at the ideation board, a lot of the ideation pieces of the puzzle come from competitors, what they're doing. And I said, wipe this all off the board. I don't really care what the hell the competitors are doing. You need to come up with new ideas on how to adapt technologies, processes, whatever it may be, that would allow us to move into disruptive phase so we can draw down that technology, that process, or that product into innovation and then to incrementalism. So it's a reverse of how most people think. That goes towards the practice of safe is risky or risky is safe. Risky is safe, or these companies that think in inverse of disruptive to innovative to incremental. So that's how you have to think here when you talk about creative ideation and strategic refinement. The next is visionary communication. Paint vivid pictures, colorful pictures of what's possible with passion and purpose. You notice I didn't talk about products, services, whatever. Visionary leaders paint vivid pictures of what's possible with passion and purpose. What our world will look like with this product. Now, how many of you actually honestly think that way? I would call bullshit if everybody says that this is how they think. They don't think this way. What would our world look like if we were able to adopt and commercialize this idea with our company or brand? Paint vivid pictures of what that looks like with passion and purpose behind this idea that you commercialize. And then ask yourself if it's worth it. The next is inspire collective action by communicating clearly and authentically. And I talk about this all the time, and I keep drilling it in week after week after week because it's so important to visionary leaders. Inspire, I use these words, inspire collective action by communicating clearly and authentically. People ask me all the time, like, how do I keep my team passionate? Well, it's communicating authentically and clearly and consistently. And the next is tactical execution with emotional intelligence. It's a lot of words, but let me break it down for you. So when we talk about tactical execution with emotional intelligence, we're talking about empowering teams through trust, guidance, and shared direction. Making sure that you are empowering your teams with the tools, the resources, the authentic leadership, and a vision that you are committed to long term. And you're balancing judgment and creativity to transform vision into reality. Reward the failures. Trust me. Reward the failures for those that have given the effort and all that they can towards trying to bring an idea to reality. What they've done is they built a step to a path that allows you to execute your vision and bring it to reality. So think of failures as steps. Some will have many more steps than others. Thomas Edison had 9,999 steps he had to walk up in order to commercialize the light bulb. Think about that. But that's what it takes many times. The next is resilience, risk, and adaptation. Embrace failure as a pathway to growth. In embracing failure, they'll ask me many times, like, what is embracing failure? Hey, we can't fail all the time. We need to have some successes. Well, think about a venture capitalist firm. They're happy with a batting average of 200. If they get 200, they can make up for the other 80%. So if you're embracing failure as a pathway to growth, and to talk about it, risky is safe. Or you can take the other path of safe is risky. What I mean by this is that you have a stepway to disruption. And it's not done through incrementalism or even innovation. You have to take a risky step to set a vision that's going to disrupt your industry. You have to have a pathway to growth through risk. And risk is only as good as your ability to embrace failure. Next on this point is leverage trends and insights to build culturally immersive brands, products, or services. So you want to make sure that if your brand is cool, it may not be as cool as it was in 1980. So you need to leverage trends and insights to build a culturally immersive brand. Nike's a lot different today than it was when Phil Knight founded the company. So make sure that you're leveraging trends and insights to build culturally immersive brands. Culture is, again, I'll reiterate this. This isn't part of chapter 2. But I just want to mention culture is probably one of the most important anchor points for your brand. Those that ignore culture ignore your community, your team, and the passion that you built around the vision for what you're trying to achieve. And the last is legacy. I talked a little bit about legacy last week, but I'd like to kind of build upon that. And legacy through leadership. And what does that mean? It means mentorship, shared belief, and community-first thinking. You're not in a funnel by yourself. You're not in a bubble by yourself. You have a community that believe in you, that believe in your brand, that you're going to continue to make great products, that you're going to continue to provide a service that's seamless. So mentorship, shared belief, and community-first thinking as a brand builds lifetime customer value. And the next point is a visionary mindset that ensures the brand thrives for generations. And that's done through culture. Culturally immersive brands can ensure that the brand thrives for generations. So the point I'm making here on all of these is that they all mesh together to build a visionary leader. So again, the mindset, building a mental framework for continuous achievement as a leader, is mindset as a roadmap, future casting with clarity, creative ideation and strategic refinement, visionary communication, tactical execution with emotional intelligence, resilience, risk, and adaptation, and finally, legacy through leadership. So as I do with the podcast, I always have some final thoughts here. And number one, thank you again for joining me on the Visionary Chronicles. I always appreciate your time. And the visionary mindset is, just to give you a little bit of an insight here, it's not a gift, it's a commitment. The visionary mindset is not a gift. It's a commitment to being authentic, to being able to mindstorm, futurecast, and create a vision through sabbaticals that you can communicate to your team that inspires them and allows them an aspirational ideation of where they're taking the brand. And I say they, not you. Be humble as a leader. It's a relentless pursuit to think, visualize, and believe in something greater than yourself. It's about creating clarity in chaos, finding opportunity where others see roadblocks, barriers, and inspiring others around you to take that journey with you. Think of it as a step-by-step journey. Everything's an analogy. And visionary leaders aspire people who aspire to be with this brand long term. A great brand is one that never has a shortage of great talent. They're lined up around the block because they understand the culture, the community that you've built, and they just want to be a part of it. So if you take away, let's say, one thing from today on this podcast, let it be this. Vision without belief is imagination. Vision with belief and action is transformation. Again, I'll say vision without belief is just imagination. Vision with belief and action is transformation. So whether you're shaping or building a brand, leading a team, a movement, ask yourself this question. Are you merely reacting to the present, or are you intentionally building the future? And in the Visionary Leader, I outline case studies, 17 visionary leaders over the generations, from Jesus to Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Lincoln, all of these great visionaries, all the way up to Steve Jobs and Elon Musk of today. So again, ask yourself, are you merely reacting to the present, incremental improvement, or are you intentionally building the future, disruption? So if this episode resonated with you, and I hope it did, because I know your time's valuable, I encourage you to pick up a copy, selfishly, of The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. That's what we're talking about today. It's available now. It was released on June 30th. It's an Amazon bestseller, category bestseller. It's available now wherever books are sold. And it's a perfect companion if you're looking to kind of reignite your purpose or lead with more clarity in the complex world. So as a thank you to the loyal podcast listeners in the visionary community we're building, you can grab a copy now on sale for $1.99. So hopefully that's not too much of a commitment. But I just want everybody to have the opportunity to read The Visionary Leader. I created it for you. Like I said, it was a 2-year labor of love, but it comes from a compilation of decades of research, experiences, and kind of real-world insights that I've had with the brands I've been with and worked with, into what makes leaders like Steve Jobs, Leonardo da Vinci, Elon Musk truly visionary. And once you've read it, if you do read it, I'd be extremely grateful if you could just take a moment, it doesn't take long, to leave an honest review on Amazon. You can't believe how much of a push that makes on a book. And my intent is to get this out to as many leaders as we can. And we can only do through your purchase of The Visionary Leader. So I wanted to make this accessible to everybody. You can even gift it to people. You just go on there, Amazon, and it'll show where you can just gift an ebook to somebody. You just email it to them. It's as easy as that. So your feedback not only helps others discover the book, it helps future visionaries find the clarity, confidence, and courage to lead with purpose in their organizations. So until next time, stay bold, stay visionary, and as always, lead with purpose. The Visionary Chronicles, where the future is created by those bold enough to shape it. Thank you for your continued support, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Until next time, Keep innovating, keep shaping the future. Thank you for your continued support, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Always stay true, stay authentic, be different, and always, always be great. Until the next Visionary Chronicles,